If my memory serves me correctly, and truthfully it rarely does, I think I've already established quite well just how much I hate that lid. This, much like my own existence, was a mistake. Technically not true because I was planned for. The mistake was the plan itself. Bad news for you guys, there's no plans to rectify this mistake, so you're stuck with me. But this one, we can fix. Whenever I'm scrapping and rebuilding projects, I try my best not to waste any of the materials from the scrap project. Number one, because it costs money, and money is a finite resource. And number two, because like every stereotypical woodworker, I hoard materials. I'm not ashamed to say that I have multiple storage boxes and cupboards filled with scrap materials, some of which moved with us when we moved from our last apartment. Some of it will move with us to our next home. If you ever decide to get into woodworking, either as a hobby or as a profession, just know you will end up hoarding tons of scrap wood. And the worst part of it is, every once in a while, you will find a use for the most cruddy little piece of scrap wood that you thought you could never use on anything, and all that will do is justify that you were right to hang on to every tiny little scrap. So none of the materials from my old lid are going to waste. In fact, some of them are going to be used in the new lid, which means I have to disassemble it so that I can take those materials out and reuse them, which is an unfortunate reality for me because I remember building the lid, and I also remember how many staples I used in it. And removing staples is not a fun job. It's a task that's quite high up on my list of jobs that I'd like to never have to do. Well, hopefully the camera's microphone is not picking up the air conditioning sound, because I'm not turning it off. I've just spent 2 hours out in the sun doing nothing but sanding wood, and I was absolutely drenched, and it's only 35 degrees out. It's not even that hot. So if the audio quality sounds terrible right now, I'm not sorry. So after 2 days of work, I finally have all the wood pieces I need for the lid measured, cut, sanded, and ready to be stained. Haven't stained them yet, clearly. So these are the side walls. This piece is going to be fixed to the enclosure. This will never move. It'll be secured in place. And this is the piece that will be attached to it via hinges that will swing open so I can get into the enclosure. I also have the two lengths that I removed from the previous lid design. Those will also be part of the section of lid that swings open. And I also have two new freshly cut lengths of wood that are going to be a part of the fixed area of the lid at the back. One of those pieces will be the actual back of the lid, and the other one will be a sort of shelf coverage area across the top, and that's going to be there so that I can fix lighting to the inside of the enclosure. Previously for this enclosure I had the lighting on the outside above the cage, which is not really a practical solution. I'd rather have it inside, so no matter where I move the enclosure to, there's always good lighting. There's a few more things I need to do to get this lid together. First of all, I need to stain the wood so it matches the colour of the enclosure. I know some of you were upset that the old flat lid did not match. I like the contrast, but I also kind of get where you were coming from. I am going to make this one match in colour. So I'm going to do one layer of stain, let that dry completely, sand it down, do a final layer of stain, and then once that's done, I should be able to assemble the frame of the lid, and then I just have to attach the new mesh onto it. I must confess I've told a terrible lie. I did 3 layers of stain, not 2. I have all my pieces now though, so we can assemble. So we have the 2 lengths of wood that were salvaged from the old lid, we have the 2 new lengths of wood, and we have all those funky cut pieces that are going to make up the side walls and the bit that opens up. With the 2 lengths of wood that I salvaged from the old lid, I made sure that before sanding and before staining them, I went through with some wood filler and patched up all the holes that were caused by the staples. So now we have completely smooth, fresh, untouched looking wood. Also, I've drilled pilot holes into all the pieces of wood that need pilot holes so that I can fix this together quite quickly. This is the face of somebody who's just realised that I messed up. I messed up real bad. See this little gap here? This lovely, wide, dwarf-sized gap in the lid of my enclosure. That's not supposed to be there. That's not supposed to be anywhere. Somehow, I know exactly how, I have mismeasured, and now I have a great big gap in the lid, and I don't have extra materials to remeasure and recut this, but I have a gap. What I do have is a house full of scrap materials. I might be able to scrounge together something to fix this. It's not going to be the nice clean design that I was hoping it was going to be. If I got this right, it would have been lovely, it would have been beautiful, would look great. It's not going to now, so I'm going to disappear for a bit, and when I come back, this is going to be fixed, and we're going to pretend that it was intentional, that this was meant to be this way, that I didn't screw up. We're not going to tell anyone. We're just going to keep it between us. Of all the things to mess up on, why did it have to be a measurement? Why such a basic thing? I'm so ashamed. Wow, look at that. It turned out exactly as I planned it, perfectly measured, absolutely no mistakes, no issues, no problems. Everything's great. Gap? What are you talking about gap? There was never a gap here. This has always been exactly like this. It's always been perfect. It's amazing. I'm so good at what I do. So this section of the lid is the back half of the lid. This is the part that doesn't open up. This is going to be fixed onto the enclosure. I'm not going to fix it with screws because I do want to be able to remove the lid fully in case I need to do any big clean outs for, medical reasons, stuff like that, or in case I want to take out some of the bigger items to change them over. Whatever. There's reasons you might want to take the lid fully off. So instead of fixing it in place with screws or glue or anything permanent, I'm going with my favourite method, and that is wooden dowels. I'm using the word favourite quite loosely there because I do like using dowels. I do like being able to just sort of clip things into place and then unclip them whenever I need, and dowels allow for that. What I don't like about dowels is the process of installing them, because you have to get the measurements exactly where they need to be. Otherwise, you have to redo the whole thing from scratch, and it's kind of annoying. Of course, you could make your life a lot easier by buying a dowel guide, which will make sure that you're drilling your holes exactly where they need to be, and everything's lined up perfectly. But I don't have one of those, so I just have to do my best and hope. So I'm drilling my holes directly into both side walls of the enclosure. I'm going to do 2 dowels on each side, which is more than enough, because their only purpose is to make sure the lid stays in place and can't shift from one side to the other, fall off the enclosure, fall into the enclosure, anything bad like that. And then I'm going to do almost the same thing for this section of lid that needs to be fixed in the enclosure and not move around. I'm going to drill 2 holes on both side walls, big enough for those dowels to fit into. So hopefully, if I've measured it up right, everything's in the right place, I should be able to just slip the lid onto the dowels, and then it will be fixed. I won't be able to move it from side to side, back and forth, anywhere else. It'll just stay exactly where it needs to be.
사랑을 속삭여 내 맘이 움찔하게 Electric love 따끔따끔 널 붙잡은 손 절대 놓지 않을래 밤을 춰서 오렌지 구름까지 올라가 Baby love me more Get the dance with me 하루 종일 baby Love me more baby love me more Get the dance with me 하루 종일 baby Love me more baby love me more
Okay, we are one step closer to being finished. Almost done. Almost there. We've got the back piece done, the lighting done, the frame for the door is finished, but it still needs meshing. I have already pre-prepared the mesh, and by pre-prepared I mean I've sprayed it down with black spray paint. This is something I've done in the past and I always forget just how good it is until I do it again, because this is what it looks like when you're looking through mesh that isn't painted, and this is what painted mesh looks like when you're looking through it. Your eyes just bypass through the mesh. It's so much easier to see through. If you film inside your enclosures, it's also so much easier for your camera to see through. It's one extra task to add to your cage building project, and it makes such a big difference. I also think it looks a lot nicer on the final product. It looks a lot more finished and professional than plain mesh. To fix the mesh onto the door frame, I just use a basic bog standard staple gun. Nothing fancy, nothing over the top, just staple it in place, and you're done. And the final step to finish this lid is just to attach that door frame onto the back piece using some normal hinges and a couple of screws. One final thing I decided to add just for the extra safety of it is a simple hook latch, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's just a hook that latches the lid closed and makes sure that it can't be somehow accidentally opened. Oh, my basil's dying. No! One of my 89 basil plants is fading from existence. How will I season my eggs? Yes, I really do have 89 basil plants. No, I didn't mean to grow 89 basil plants. That's why I have 89 basil plants. Do you want to know why I grew so many basil plants? I know you don't, but I'm going to tell you anyway. For the last 3 years, I have not been able to find a single basil plant for sale in any garden store, in any supermarket, in any anywhere that sells plants. Even poor quality plants, have not been able to find a single basil plant. So Danny, being the absolute sweetheart he is, bought me a bunch of basil seeds, which I left in a drawer for 2 years. But this year, finally got around to planting them. Threw some in a pot, took good care of them. Nothing happened. No sprouts, not a single seed sprouted. Fine, it happens. Try a second time, nothing. By this point, very desperate, so I take all of my remaining basil seeds, put them in pots, just throw them in there, barely take care of them. Every single one sprouts. That is why I have so many basil plants. And about 1 month after they sprouted, went to the garden centre, basil plants everywhere, full grown, fully matured, ready to nosh on, really healthy looking basil plants. I'd be lying if I said I didn't almost buy one, but I didn't. I put it back. Instead, I bought some succulents I didn't need, because I have way too many succulents already, and I barely take care of them. They're alive though, so that's basically a summary of my life. Barely take care of it, still alive.